I want to share with you some messages that I got from Robert Redford after his passing. Welcome to Trevor's Tarot, Astrology, and Spirituality. First off, a huge thank you to everybody who subscribed to the channel. Thank you for liking, watching, commenting on the videos, sharing the videos, watching the videos all the way to the end. These are the things that really help the algorithm. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I have started my tarot reading channel. I'm sorry, my tarot reading class on Patreon. There'll be a link in the description below. You can get $15 off the first month. The class will last approximately 4 months. Um, and when you sign up, you immediately get access to 4 classes, some members' videos where I answer questions that people post to me. And if you don't like it, then you could just cancel, right? You're not obligated to stay. You can cancel at any time. The same's true with the soul community, which is on my other channel, Scrying Out Loud. That link will be there if you wish to join that. There we look at daily energies, and I hope they are helpful. I think the feedback for the most part has been quite positive. Okay, so Robert Redford, interesting life. For sure. Not always perfect. Um, but I think towards the end, it was a very purposeful, driven life. And I think environmental activism and speaking out against uh, politicians that are just wrong um, on issues like the environment and ones of personal character, I think really will be kind of his legacy. So the big thing that was shown to me when I was scrying and his energy was coming through was that there's a reason why we use the phrase Mother Earth, Gaia, and we speak of Earth as if it's a living, breathing planet, because really that's the correct way to think about it. Does it fit the textbook biologist definitions of living? Maybe, maybe not. But I don't think it matters because, we have to understand that human knowledge is quite small in the vastness of everything that there is to know. So I think thinking about the planet as a living, breathing thing makes addressing things like climate change and addressing the plastic crisis and overconsumption of natural resources a much easier thing to address, because really it's kind of like, taking the planet to the doctor and the doctor saying, hey, you can't handle any more plastic in your diet. Now, we're all guilty of consuming things, not even necessarily by our own free will, but by the way that society has been set up for us. It's impossible not to use plastic in any form. It's impossible. Uh, you can try and I think we should, but um, from buying potatoes to buying uh, unless you're going to pick out individual potatoes and put them in a cloth stack, it's it's essentially, impossible not to consume plastic, prepackaged food. All of this stuff is plastic. Of course, the bottled water, the bottled soda, that's probably easier to avoid. But does that make us bad people? No. It makes us victims of the society that we live in. And I think that was one of his big points, is that this change has to come on a broader level. And, you know, the way he kind of pointed this out was that, everything that is on the planet that's a living, breathing thing is a parasite. And, some parasites are beneficial, some parasites are destructive. There are parasites that eat barnacles off of whales, for example, that are very healthy to the whales. Um, there are parasites that live in alligators' teeth that eat, the food from their teeth, so that they don't have tooth decay, for example. That's just very beneficial. We The thing is, are human beings being beneficial or are we being destructive? And I don't think the answer to this question is very difficult. It's very clearly that we're being destructive. But like he was pointing out, there's not really a choice in the matter for most of us. Could we all walk to work? Probably not. If we buy electric cars, does that solve the problem? Well, it depends where the electricity comes from. If the electricity is coming from a coal-powered electrical plant, then that doesn't really solve anything. If the electricity is coming from renewable resources like solar and wind, perhaps. You but I think we need to be careful again with certain renewable resources. I think we might find cause problems later on. So, I think, solar energy is definitely, I think, the way of the future. It's cheap. It's so, I mean, it's not super cheap, but it's so cheap. It's nothing to buy, solar powered lights these days, right? For your outside spaces. They're cheap, relatively speaking. Now, of course, all these things that we buy come wrapped in plastic, et cetera, et cetera. The food that we buy comes wrapped in plastic. There's really not much of a choice. You can't um, do much about it to completely avoid plastic. So there's the plastic crisis. So Mr. Redford's hope and belief is that humans will slowly evolve to become beneficial parasites to the planet, and we will switch from being destructive to aiding in the cleaning of the planet. And I hope he's right, but we'll take a look at that. The other thing that he pointed out, and he was a big advocate for native rights, and I think the reason so is that he recognized, rightfully so, that most native tribes on all continents were able to exist with the land, not on it, but with it. And the overconsumption wasn't there because it wasn't, one, necessary, but two, it there just wasn't the energy to keep it, right? You can only preserve so much food, so there's no reason to overhunt, there's no reason to overgather. And so I think, in that sense, there's something that could really be learned from uh, our ancestors, pre-industrial revolution, and maybe even pre some forms of society. Um, the other thing that he was very keen about pointing out, and maybe this will make more sense in a few months or a few years, is that respect should be used as a verb and not as something somebody deserves or gets. So, in other words, um, we respect what we care about. Respect for the planet. Uh, Respect isn't something that is earned; it's an action. If that makes sense. Um, the other thing that he was quick to point out is somebody who was quite wealthy. Or I'm assuming he was quite wealthy. I guess I don't know for sure, but I think that's a fair assumption. Is that class, status, caste, wealth, they're just illusions. Think of the Kate Spades of the world who chose to end their life early, who were quite wealthy. Happiness takes work regardless of circumstances. So people with that have the most might be quite unhappy. People that have the least might be the happiest. It's really kind of uh, an illusion to think that gaining material objects is going to bring us happiness. And I think this goes along with what I was talking about over the previous eclipse to this current eclipse that's coming up this season, where we kind of start this shift in what we value. Like the things that we value start to shift. And I think that continues. And I think this is what the message is here. Uh, the other big one was that, you know, don't trust anybody that says that they truly understand the universe, spirit, whatever word you want to put to it, because this is beyond human understanding. And then, so this went on for about, oh, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something along those lines. And then at the end, uh, it was kind of a joke, but I just kept hearing the Bob Marley song. I forget which one it is, but it's the catchphrase at the end is everything is going to be all right. And I think that's the belief and the hope that humans do figure this out, whether we want to or not. We don't get a choice. We figure it out. So let's just throw a few cards here on what we're supposed to learn from Robert Redford. What are we supposed to learn? I think the biggest thing is that life's mystery is far bigger and more complicated than we're capable of understanding. We get the Emperor card. You know, this is about leadership. We have to start electing leaders or however we're picking leaders that are on board with this concept of trying to repair the planet. Now that's going to start by slowly stopping the destruction of it until we get that done, and then we can start repairing. We're talking about thousands and thousands of years here. This is not something that happens overnight. And yes, climate change is going to be a serious issue, but the planet will survive it. Humans, that's maybe a little bit different of a story. Other species might not. So we need to do the best that we can. You know, the way to do this is through a gentle approach of diplomacy, not to force things to happen. Now, this is kind of happening in the US. It's pretty under the radar, but you know, the evolution to solar, it's just happening. It doesn't matter whether the government is subsidizing it anymore. Moving towards electric cars, it's happening. It doesn't matter whether the government subsidizes it. People are choosing these things because they're more beneficial to them. Now, if people are choosing things because they're more beneficial to them and it's better for the planet, that's fantastic because ultimately that's what's going to need to happen, right? We're going to be able to, we need to have choices. Right now, grocery shopping and avoiding plastic is almost impossible. Uh, it's going to be a rough road. It's going to be hard to keep up with the destruction that is going on and keep it within the right range so that everything can start to be repaired for the generations that come, many generations that come after us. So I do think that's a big thing. I do think, the King of Wands here, think beware of not necessarily people that speak eloquently. Some of them are perfectly great people, but just taking caution that what somebody says isn't as indicative of who they are as what they do. So, you know, I think that it was a big kind of message trying to come out. Maybe I didn't say it quite as eloquently as it was meant to be, but you know, um, that idea of letting people show you who they are, not tell you who they are. And maybe if we picked leaders by that standard, things would be a lot better. There are things going on behind the scenes that we can't see. The high priestess at the center of the reading. There's help out there. It will come when the time is right. It's probably not going to happen in our lifetimes. I know there are a lot of people thinking it will, but I don't think so. Um, there are definitely other species on other planets that will assist humanity at some point. We're not ready for it. We just aren't. I wish we were, but we're not. Um, so I don't think that there'll be any sort of big salvation coming without us making the turn first. So I think that's another thing. Um, we need to worry about the intermediary steps between becoming, going from a child to becoming an adult, going from a puppy to becoming a dog. All these steps in between are where life happens. This is where the destruction of the planet happens. And, you know, most of us have no say in it. Now, we can, of course, reduce our carbon footprint to a certain ability. We can do things, like recycling, reusing, reinventing. These things are all very good. But at the end of the day, we're in a society that's forcing us to be part of the destruction. We shouldn't feel guilty about that. What we should feel guilty about is not trying to our hardest to get leaders that want to change this part. I mean, in so many places, you just the distance between us and our food is so vast. You know, things aren't local anymore. We don't eat things that are in season all the time. The winter time isn't about strawberries and raspberries, it's about squashes and potatoes and apples. And the summertime's about the fresh fruits and the fresh vegetables. And eating in season, these are things that we've gotten away from as a society that I think would, I think is the message here that would be quite beneficial to us, is to really think about how much energy is consumed to give us that banana in December versus how much energy is consumed to get us the strawberries in June. Right? Strawberries where I'm at, everybody's got a strawberry patch. People give them away. In June, they're easily come by. They're free for the most part. People just give them away. I mean, they're not necessarily free. But the point is, there's not much energy expended to get a strawberry in June where I'm at versus to get a banana any time of the year. That takes quite a bit of energy. Now, I'm not saying don't eat bananas. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I think we need to think about these things. Uh, the Knight of Cups, I think this is about surrendering and throwing our hands up and really realizing that um, we can only do so much. And we should do as much as we can, but we shouldn't be guilty about the parts that we can't do. This is a societal problem. The solution happens when the species, humans, change collectively, not individually. Now, individuals drive change, but collectively, the whole species is going to need to change. Because After all, it's all about an inheritance and what we're leaving for future generations. And do we want to leave future generations the idea that you need to work 40 to 60 hours a week to survive on pre-packaged, pre-cooked food that doesn't taste particularly well? Is that the legacy we want? It's kind of where we're forced to be, but I think this is the point. It's like these things really don't have to be this way. The push for the 4-day work week, this is the beginning of it. Things are already starting to change. The ability to um, get clean energy is there for some of us, not for all of us, but for some of us. So it's already starting. And so, you know, the big thing that we're going to have to tackle is people's apathy. People just not really caring, the Four of Cups. So, you know, we need to get the appropriate leaders. There's some help going on behind the scenes on this. Um, and we have to get people woken up to the fact that everyone plays a role. I think we do the best that we can. We realize that we're also victims of this capitalism and industrialism and globalization. And those things will start to fix themselves. We can't fix them on our own. We can take little baby steps. And I think that's what we're supposed to do. And again, I think that's the stuff going on behind the scenes. The thing we need to be worried about is we don't let the planet get too far out of control to where we can't um, live harmonious with it. Now, don't get me wrong, the planet will be fine. Whether humans are on it is a different story. That's the planet will be just fine. Um, Diplomacy, being careful of the cult-like mentalities, the people that speak eloquently but don't have any actions to back it up. If you're 50 and you talk very eloquently about all the things you want to do with the world, but you haven't done any of them in your first 50 years of life, probably not going to do them once you're elected either. Yeah. Uh, I think, really realizing all the steps that we take through life from birth to death are all part and chances to either be destructive or productive, and focusing on the legacy that we leave. So underneath here we have everything's going to the same point because there is no other choice. Republicans, all these anti-environmentalists, they're going to die out. It might take 100 years and the planet might suffer, but there will be no other choice. In the meantime, there will be a lot of fighting, and you know, we're going to get some really strong emotional messages. There's a lot of people that are going to have to go through serious burdens because of climate change. But all in all, I do think everything will be okay. I think that was the message from Mr. Redford. So, anyhow, all right. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.